Hello everyone, my name is Samantha and I am with Empower Multimedia. We post content regarding business, academia, and entrepreneurship. Today we will be covering the business model canvas, and just as a reminder, these videos are strictly informational and not advice. Now let's get into it. So like I said, today we are going to be talking about the business model canvas. And what this is a visual chart that puts value proposition, infrastructure, customers, and finances into a strategic management and startup template. So basically the different categories you can find in one of these is key partners, cost structure, key resources, key activities, value propositions, customer relationships, channels, customer segments, and revenue streams. So today we're going to start off by going through each one of these different categories and describing what they are, what their uses can be for, and basically how you can get the most out of each segment. So let's look at key activities. And what key activities do is they describe the most important things a company must do to make its business model work. So every business model calls for a number of key activities, and these are the most important actions a company must take to operate successfully. Key activities are required to create and offer a value proposition, reach markets, maintain customer relationships, and earn revenues. Now, it's important to remember that key activities do depend on the business model type. So examples of this would be for Microsoft, key activities would include software development, whereas for Dell, key activities would include supply chain management. And so another example of this would be McKinsey, which is a consultancy firm. Key activities would include problem solving. So when you're looking at your key activities, you want to think about what key activities do our value propositions require? What about our distribution channels, customer relationships, and revenue streams? All of these things are important to consider when you think about your key activities. Okay, so next we're going to be covering customer relationships. In customer relationships, this section describes the type of relationships a company establishes with specific customer segments. So a company should clarify the type of relationship it wants to establish with each customer segment. This is important because it'll let you know how to communicate with your customers and how to keep them. So relationships in here can range from personal to automated. So some goals that would drive your customer relationships would be customer acquisition, which is getting new customers to use your product or service. And the other would be customer retention, which means those new customers, you want to be able to keep them and you want them to keep coming back to use your product or service. And then the third would be to boost sales and upsell. So when you think about customer relationships, you want to have some questions in your head when you're thinking about, what kind of relationship you do have. So the first one would be, what type of relationship does each of our customer segments expect us to establish and maintain with them? Which ones have we established and how costly are they? And how are they integrated with the rest of our business model? So now let's talk about key partnerships. So key partnerships basically describe the network of suppliers and partners that make the business model work. In today's day and age, companies are forging partnerships for a lot of different reasons, and partnerships are becoming a cornerstone of many business models. Companies create alliances to optimize their business models, reduce risk, or acquire resources. And so we can look at three different types of partnerships. You can consider strategic alliances between non-competitors, competition, which would be strategic partnerships between competitors, and joint ventures to develop new businesses. When thinking about key partnerships, you should consider who are the key partners, who are the key suppliers, which key resources are we acquiring from our partners, and which key activities do our partners perform. Now let's consider key resources. Basically, key resources describe the most important assets required to make a business model work. So every business model requires key resources. These resources allow an enterprise to create and offer a value proposition, reach markets, maintain relationships with customer segments, and earn revenues. Different key resources are needed depending on the type of business model. For example, a microchip manufacturer would require capital-intensive production facilities, whereas a microchip designer would focus more on human resources. Key resources can be physical, financial, intellectual, or human, and key resources can be owned or leased by the company or acquired from key partners. When you look at your key resources, you would want to consider what key resources do our value propositions require, what key resources do our distribution channels require, what key resources do our customer relationships require, and what key resources do our revenue streams require. Now let's dive into customer segments. So customer segments define the different groups of people or organizations an enterprise aims to reach and serve. So if you think about it, customers comprise the heart of any business model. Without customers, no company can survive for long. So in order to better satisfy customers, a company may group them together into distinct segments with common needs, common behaviors, or other attributes. A business model may define one or several large or small customer segments, and an organization must make a conscious decision about which segments to serve and which segments to ignore. Now, once this decision is made, a business model can be carefully designed around a strong understanding of specific customer needs. So we're going to figure out how customer groups represent separate segments. This can happen if their needs require and justify a distinct offer, if they are reached through different distribution channels, if they require different types of relationships, if they have substantially different profitabilities, and if they are willing to pay for different aspects of the offer. And so when you're looking at customer segments, you're going to want to think about who are we creating the value for and who are our most important customers. So I'm sure you keep hearing me mention value propositions, and now we're going to take a look into what those are. So value propositions describe the bundle of products and services that create a value for a specific customer segment. Now, the value proposition is the reason why customers turn from one company to another. It solves a customer problem or satisfies a customer need. Each value proposition consists of a selected bundle of products or services that caters to the requirements of a specific customer segment. Now, in this sense, the value proposition is an aggregation or bundle of benefits that a company offers customers. Some value propositions may be innovative and represent a new or disruptive offer, whereas others may be similar to existing market offers, but maybe they have more added features and attributes. So now when you're thinking about your value propositions, you want to consider something such as what value do we offer to the customer? Which one of our customers' problems are we helping to solve? Which customer needs are we satisfying? And what bundles of products and services are we offering to each customer segment? Now we're going to look at channels, and channels are going to be concerning the two last things we talked about, being customer segments and value proposition. So channels describe how a company communicates with and reaches its customer segments to deliver the value proposition. So communication, distribution, and sales channels comprise a company's interface with customers. Channels are customer touchpoints that play an important role in the customer experience. And they serve several different functions, which would include raising awareness among customers about a company's product and services, helping customers evaluate a company's value proposition, allowing customers to purchase specific products and services, delivering a value proposition to customers, and providing post-purchase customer support. So when you're thinking about your channels, the questions you want to consider are, through which channels do our customer segments want to be reached? How are we reaching them now? How are our channels integrated? Which ones work best for our customers, and which ones are most cost efficient? How are we integrating them with customer routines? So now let's look into the cost structure. Cost structure describes all costs incurred to operate a business model. So this building block describes the most important costs incurred while operating under a particular business model. Creating and delivering value, maintaining customer relationships, and generating revenue all incur costs. Such costs can be calculated relatively easily after defining key resources, key activities, and key partnerships, which we've gone over. So some business models, though, are more cost-driven than others. So-called no-frills airlines, for instance, have built business models entirely around low-cost structure. The different questions you want to consider when you're thinking about your cost structure are, what are the most important costs inherent on our business model? Which key resources are the most expensive, and which key activities are the most expensive? So finally, in our business model canvas, we are going to look at revenue streams. And revenue streams represent the cash a company generates from each customer segment. And so here you want to remember that costs must be subtracted from revenues to create earnings. So if a customer comprises the heart of the business model, basically a revenue stream would be its arteries. A company must ask itself, For what value is each customer segment truly willing to pay? Successfully answering that question allows the firm to generate one or more revenue streams from each customer segment. Each revenue stream may have different pricing mechanisms, and examples of these could be fixed list prices, bargaining, auctioning, etc. And a business model can involve two different types of revenue streams. So the first would be transaction revenues, which result from one-time customer payments, or recurring revenues, and these result from ongoing payments to either deliver a value proposition to customers or provide post-purchase customer support. So here you want to think about these questions. First, you would want to think about, for what value are customers really willing to pay? And what do they currently pay? How are they currently paying? How would they prefer to pay? And how much does each revenue stream contribute to overall revenues? So now that we understand how the business model canvas works, we're going to look at two different examples. The first example is going to be Panera Bread, and this will help you get a feel for how to fill these out and how they will help you. So for Panera Bread, key partners would be farmers, equipment manufacturers, and DoorDash. Key activities would be providing customers with a variety of goods. The customer segmentation would include individuals who like salads, soups, and sandwiches, and they can even talk about breakfast and lunch because people who go to Panera tend to go during those hours. For a value proposition, it would be providing food at an affordable price. The cost structure, remember you're going to put in anything that incurs costs, so employees, food, anything else like that. The revenue would be sales on food. The key resources would be their mobile app to make orders. The customer relationship would be in-person or no interaction. And finally, the channels would be social media, TV, radio, etc. So for our next example, we're going to take a look at Apple. Here, our key partners would be manufacturers, app store developers, phone companies, publishers, and content creators. Our key activities here would be software development, design, quality control, and manufacturing. The key resources would be design culture. The value propositions would be think different, awesome smooth design, usability, and brand and status. The customer relationships would be self-service and knowledgeable sales and customer support. The channels for Apple would be apple.com, Apple stores, and third-party retailers. The customer segments are more like mass market because they kind of go for everyone. The cost structure would be cost-driven and economies of scale. And finally, the revenue streams would be product sales, media and licensing, and subscription revenue. This concludes the video. Make sure you check back with Empower Multimedia for all of your business, academia, and entrepreneurship concerns. If you have any questions, comments, or video recommendations, please comment below. Also remember to like and subscribe.